Test one, check one.
Okay. Hi, YouTube. Hello, in person. My name is Leslie Routh. I am the learning consultant at Northside. Hello, more ladies that I know. We are here to talk about behavior intervention plans. If you have any questions, I'm going to pause for the people who are watching or listening remotely. My email is lruth@farmingdaleschools.org, and halfway through I'm going to pause, or at least at question time I'm going to pause, and I'm going to check my email for the people who would like to email a quick question, and then we will also have questions from the people who are here. So, first of all, I would like to thank you all for coming. Behavior intervention plans are a really integral part of a teacher aide's job. And behavior intervention plans start with what's called a functional behavior assessment. It's also known as an FBA. It might have been something that you've heard before. Functional behavioral assessments are exactly what they sound like. You're looking for the function of the behavior. So this is going to be taken through observation. Data is going to be taken by school psychologists in our district. And it's going to be taken over several sessions and several settings. They're going to be looking at when the behavior happens, what's happening prior to the behavior, which is referred to as an antecedent, right before the behavior, and then the consequence, A, B, C. Antecedent, behavior, consequence. What's the result? What is the child getting out of that behavior? Is the child getting getting away with work? Is the child getting out of the classroom? Is the child seeking something sensory-based? Functional behavioral assessments are also, they're observable and they're measurable. They're things that we are looking for. This is an example of an ABC chart that would collect the data. So, it tells you the time and location, your student, the teacher, who's observing, what the target behavior we're looking for, what happens right before, what triggered it. So if you have a student who jumps out and runs out of the classroom, every single time you pull out the math workbook, we're going to make a note that the math workbook came out and they ran away. What's the consequence? They didn't have to do their math work. So the goal is to figure out why they're running out of the classroom. As a result of many data points, we develop a behavior intervention plan that's also done with a psychologist. So if you are a one-on-one aide and you're not for health reasons, or a three-on-one aide, your child most likely has a behavior intervention plan, something that you have access to read by speaking to your director or your classroom teacher to see what is on this behavior intervention plan. It's also known as a BIP. A lot of times they go together. FBA, BIP. Functional Behavioral Assessment defines the BIP. Originally, these were developed for students who are on the spectrum to help identify why they displayed the behaviors they did. What this does is it puts a plan in place for when you have the behavior. It focuses on positive behavior, and the goal of the BIP is to improve or replace the challenging behavior with something else. Your responsibility is to administer the BIP, and we're going to look at example one right in a moment, and I'm going to show you the different parts of it. And each BIP is individualized to each child. So what motivates one child is not necessarily going to motivate another child. What's causing another child to run out of the classroom is not causing what all the other children are running out of the classroom. So I know this is small, but this gives an example, and I'm just going to read it down to you. So at the top we see is, the example child, the school, what the child's problem is. So this is our first problem we're working on. Work avoidance, defined as an attempt to avoid or escape a task, which an adult has directed the student to engage in. So the teacher tells the child to do something, the child does not do it. Students may attempt to leave the table or other learning areas within the classroom, play with toys or materials instead of working. They might drop to the floor, they might cry, they might yell. Those are the fun ones. Really yelling, good luck, you know. So, as a result, we break it down into areas. We want to try and prevent a behavior. That's part of the BIP. If we want to prevent it, one strategy they are suggesting is that we limit access to preferred activities. So we don't have the toys available, we don't have the Play-Doh out, we don't have whatever the activity is they're seeking to do rather than the work, that's put away until the activity is done. So it's not even there to be tempted. Another strategy is behavior momentum. So during work times, once they start getting going, we're going to give them some tokens to keep them going. They're going, we're going to reward them, we're going to provide them with positive praise, we're going to give them tokens if we're using a token board to keep them on task so they can complete that task and maybe do another task as well. Providing choices. Choices is a big motivator for students, as it is for most people. If I give you a choice, you're more inclined to pick one. If I tell you how to do something, you don't want to do it. So if you say to a child, okay, you have a choice. You can do the math worksheet, or we can do the reading right now. What would you prefer to do? It lets the child have ownership, and it prevents the, I don't want to do this. I got to pick one of the two, and I got to pick the one I wanted to do first. Chunking. So this is knowing that the child has a short stamina, and we're going to do little chunks of work with a break, little chunks of work with a break, little chunks of work with a break. And incorporating visuals. I will show you some visuals in a little bit that help. The example here is a first next board. I'm sure some of you have seen this in classroom, but it tells the child what they have to do first and what they're going to do next. So first they read a book, next they get to go on the computer for 10 minutes. Or first they're going to finish the math worksheet, and then they're going to go to OT. So they know what's coming. A lot of times behaviors are also related to anxiety. They don't know what's coming next, and it helps to comfort a child to know, when I finish this, the next thing is going to happen. The next component is the replacement behavior, what we want to teach into when we're working with a child. So the strategy that they're suggesting for the sample is that the child is going to learn to request a break. Rather than getting up and running away every time you tell them to take on the math worksheet, they're going to say, I need a break. It's hard to teach, and it's something that's continuously being worked on, and it's not going to be something the child internalizes immediately. But that's the skill that we want to replace for the child rather than running around. This one, they want you to teach the child self-regulation strategies, drawing a picture, coloring, deep breaths, some music, and then returning to work once the timer goes off. Next, we have a reinforcement strategy, and that's a token board. Anybody ever used a token board? No token board takers? Okay. Yeah, I see somebody in the back with a token board. So, oh, I'm sorry, a token board. And I have samples up here, actually. I will show you it in a moment. It's called a token board. Hold on, yes. Sorry, Jeff, I'm at the joke. I'm going to pull out a token board. Okay, so. For the friends on the internet, this is a token board. I will pass it around. This one happens to have unicorns on it, but it's a visual. This is one I use pretty regularly when I have kids in my classroom. It tells the child their eyes are listening, sorry, their eyes are watching, their ears are listening, their mouth is quiet, their body is still, the task that they're working on, and then what they're going to earn as a result. So every time they complete whatever the task is, they get a token, and they get 5 tokens. They are able to earn whatever the reward is. So here, I'll pass this around. This is a token board. There's different formats, there's different styles. In this next visual, this is the token board that they have as an example. This is just the one that I've developed over the years, but same thing. I am working for token, 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 token. You can hole punch, you can put a check, you can give a sticker, depends on the child. Response to the behavior problem. So, the last part of your BIP is how you respond when the child displays the behavior. So in this case, they're going to get timeout from their reinforcement. They get it every time the behavior occurs. And if it happens, we don't remove the task. We take a stopwatch, we record how long the child is avoidant for the task, ignoring it, not completing it. And we tell them every minute you have here is a minute you have less on whatever it is you are earning. So if you have a child who's earning Chromebook time and they get 10 minutes of Chromebook time, if you're spending 3 minutes avoiding your math worksheet, you are losing 3 minutes of your Chromebook time. So that is supposed to help the child. This is supposed to help you help the child respond to the behavior more appropriately. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay, let's keep going. So, BIP strategies. Like we saw, they are supposed to be proactive. We are trying to prevent the behavior from happening in the first place when we use a BIP. There's a component that's reactive that tells you what to do when it happens. There's a reward in place that helps motivate the child to avoid the behavior or to select the behavior you prefer them to select. It selects a few behaviors to address, not all of them. You are not going to be able to resolve the fact that the child runs out of the room, that they cry, they kick, they scream, they throw things, they spit on you, they tear up your piece of paper. You usually pick no more than 3 things to work on. Once those 3 things are worked on, you're able, I'll tell you in a second. Once those 3 things are achieved, then you can move on to other behaviors that you need to address. You also want to increase the sustained time that the child is completing the task. So if the child's able to complete a task for 3 minutes consistently, then we move to 5 minutes. BIPs are smart. We want them to be specific, what the behavior is really specific. They are measurable, something that we can say, okay, we increase their time, or we decrease the time of the tantrum, we decrease the time that they, the amount of times they tore up the paper, or we increase the number of problems they were able to answer, or we increase the time that they were able to read a book for the task. They are attainable. We are going to strive for things that a child will be successful for. The intention of a BIP is to help a child be successful. We are not going to write one so that the child is set up for failure. They're also realistic. So we're not going to say that the child gets to read, their book in the middle of the football field every afternoon in the middle of November. That's not realistic. But it is realistic that maybe they're in a classroom in a quieter corner because it's distracting them from being able to complete their tasks. And there's a time frame. So we're going to work on this for X amount of time, and we're going to evaluate to see how realistic it is. Are we going to be able to remove a behavior in a month? Is it going to take 6 months? Is it going to take the whole school year? We have to be mindful of the time frame that we're working with the behavior of the child. So when do we implement a BIP? It's all throughout the day. You might have a checklist. You might have a chart. There might be daily reports as well to report on the behaviors and how they're going. This is a daily report that I had for a student once, where his day was broken down into 5 components for him, and he was able to see where he was we were able to see where he was having success, and he was able to see where he was having success. And then we were actually able to have a conversation with the child based on, we noticed that the morning meeting is not a good time for you regularly. What's going on there? What's happening during morning meeting? As classroom teachers, we were able to, my aides and I were able to look and say, oh, we noticed that he's having difficulty here because, oh, we noticed at morning meeting she's really grouchy because she hasn't finished her breakfast, and we can look into those things to help to prevent the behavior from happening. This is another tool you might see in a primary classroom, or even in a 611. I want, and then the child's to pick what it is to help be proactive in preventing the behavior. So if you have a nonverbal student, what is the child trying to get? What does the child need? And having them select it so they can communicate it with you. This is a first next board that I spoke of before. So first we finish foundations, then we go to music. These sort of strategies help to reduce behaviors proactively because the child doesn't have anxiety about the behavior, what is coming next in their day. If they're able to manage that, you can move a first, then next, last. So first we finish math, next we have lunch, then we go to recess. And these are all like Velcro, like the token boards, so they can rip off and we can replace them throughout the day. They go along with a visual schedule. So here it tells the child, all right, in the morning you're gonna wash your hands, then we go to morning meeting, we do our morning work, we'll have our morning meeting, we have foundations, we'll read from our book bag, we wash our hands again and have snack. This is broken down into just the morning segment. Sometimes an entire day is too overwhelming for a child, so this is another proactive strategy that is a visual, so you've taken out the language, and it's got something the child can refer to. Again, you can also have Velcro on them so you can rip them off as the activities are done. The kids usually like to That little sensory sound is also exciting for some. When it isn't working, because sometimes it doesn't work. Usually it doesn't work because we have to revisit it. The reason might not have been correct that we were assuming. Maybe the child isn't sensory seeking. Maybe they're being task avoidant for a reason. Or maybe they aren't being, maybe they're not trying to elope. Maybe they do have a sensory issue that we need to address. And kids change. What was bothering them about one thing at one point isn't always going to be bothering them forever. If you meet the goal, you go back and you revisit the FBA again. You can move to another goal, and ultimately the goal is hopefully to remove the BIP altogether. We would like the child to be able to take the strategies that you've taught them and use those tools throughout the day to be successful and not have challenging behaviors. When their challenging behaviors are replaced by skills, you can remove the BIP altogether. Oh, here's another next token word, sorry, the slides are out of order. So the morning routine, first you brush your teeth, next you're going to do this, and finally get your board. That helps the child visually as well. Here's another version of a token board, nice big I am working for, and you can give checks or stickers. And that's it. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, go right ahead. I'm sorry, I can't hear what you're saying. In the self-contained classrooms, we're not really supposed to use edibles in a 12-1. I'm sorry, I have to repeat the question. Somebody asked if we should be rewarding a child with food. Some classrooms do actually reward a child with food intentionally. That's at the discretion of the child. Food can be a strong motivator for children. In a 12-1-1, a 15-1, and ICT, we tend not to use edibles. At the preschool level, I work primarily at elementary school, so at the preschool level, they use edibles all the time. All the time. Goldfish, M&Ms. It's at the discretion of the families. The families are aware of it at the primary level and the preschool level. But when we get children from preschools, it's often difficult to break them of that because they're so used to being rewarded with something that's tasty. And M&M is very motivating. I'm sorry. Sometimes fidgets are a reward, but they also can be a motivator. That's part of the BIP that's been worked out. Fidgets can be distracting, but it's also, if you do have a fidget, there's you're working with your fidget, you have to work with, there's a separate area. We play with the fidget here, timer goes off, we get back to work. Someone else? Go right ahead. She hasn't seen a BIP. I'm telling the YouTube people, go ahead. From Howard. Right. Yeah, well, it also depends on the maturity of the child. Some children in the middle school might be mature enough for a token board like that. Yes, you are allowed to see it. So let me tell the YouTube people. So the question was, I haven't seen a BIP. I would like to see a BIP because there's strategies in the BIP that will tell me how to respond to the child. Yes. So I would suggest that you can speak with the classroom teacher. The classroom teacher does have the BIP attached to their IEP, so we should be able to read them there. If the classroom teacher doesn't have it, we can reach out to Dr. Baltar, and Dr. Baltar can provide you with that as well. Yeah. Well, you don't know, but you probably also do have several kids that you follow, or you're with the same 2 or 3 children throughout the day, or half the day, and then you switch with somebody else. So you're really only looking at the BIPs of the child that you are responsible for. You do not use the BIPs for anybody else. I would touch base with the classroom teacher first, and then if for some reason they aren't able to provide it with you or feel uncomfortable providing it to you, then Dr. Baltar. What else? Go right ahead, yell it out. Elementary. So, okay, that's a helpful question. So, the functional behavioral assessment is done on a regular basis. They're updated annually because kids change. So, the child probably came in with a functional behavioral assessment and a BIP from 5th grade. And at some point within the 6th grade school year, it should be revisited and they should reevaluate what the behavior is we're trying to look for. And this is for not even just for 6th grade. You have to do this every single year. You should be looking again at the FBA. They should be altering the BIP to be reflective of what it is, and then changes should be made and you should be provided with it. Most likely, I'm sorry, the question was, sorry, I keep reading this part. So the question was, if you're with a child, when was the BIP or the FBA done? So you're most likely going to start with one from last year. It will be updated, and at some point within the beginning part of the year, and then it will be updated and changed to match. And it might not be changed. It might be the exact same behavior you're looking for, and the child still might be motivated by the exact same reasons. So the question was, who updates an FBA and a BIP? So the school psychologist is going to update them. They are technically the most responsible for those pieces because they conduct the FBA and then they write the behavior intervention plans. There will be feedback provided by the classroom teachers, but it's really the school psychologist who's responsible for that child that will update it. No, please, listen, the questions are the best part. Go for it. All right, I'm going to check my email and see if anybody out in television land wrote anything. Let's see. Hope somebody out there did something. Oh. I love you too, Cat Barry. Somebody just sent me a love message, that's all I got. All right, no questions from YouTube. I also have one more set that's helpful. Some of you that I worked with in the 12s last year saw these tokens. These are also visual cues that are helpful. These help are proactive. Good. I'll just make this. So these are just visuals you can provide to a student. This works with any child, of any age, of any neurodiversity or not. And it just removes the language. So when they are not listening, listen. Sit. So I'll pass this around. Go ahead, what was your question? Yes, so the observations should be in the class. They should be over multiple settings. It's not necessarily going to be in the same session. It might be in a special area. Might be during lunch and recess also to see different reasons why the child is exhibiting those behaviors. But yes, the psychologist will come in and make observations on the child. All right, so thank you all so much. Without you, our classrooms do not function. So I greatly appreciate all that you do and are not always recognized for. So thank you, ladies. If you have any questions, I'll be here for a few minutes afterwards if you want to ask things that are more personal or private.